I know most people haven't really thought about this subject too much. It seems like irrelevant, but I'm gonna talk about it. Human beings are animals. We have the same physical characteristics of animals, mammals. We have legs, arms, a head, a brain. We have skin. We have a digestive system. We have a cardiovascular system. We have lungs. We are really subjected to this earth. Our body is a vehicle specialized in navigating this earth on land with two legs. A dog has four, we have four legs basically. But the arm is not considered a leg, but it really is. But the one thing that separates the human being from the animal, really two things separate human beings from animals. The first thing is the hand. And an elder told me this years ago, Carlton LaFleur. He told me the hand represents the mind. So the hand and the mind is the same thing. So the mind separates us from the animals, right? But the animal has a mind. You can tell an animal has a mind because an animal can remember who you are. It can remember fear. Because if an animal couldn't remember fear, why would it be scared? So animals, they have minds, but they don't have the hand. If the animal had the hand that man has, the animal will be able to draw and write and record their history. And the only thing that really separates us from animals, set aside from our mind or our hand, is our ability to record our past and learn and grow from our past. The language we speak right now, the language I'm speaking, really most modern languages in the world are based on Latin and Greek. And Latin and Greek languages are based on the Phoenician language, which is the Egyptian language, which introduced sound, the phonics. The letter actually represents a sound. You could take a verbal language and Latinize it with sound and letters and characters. And the Egyptian language, not only do they have characters as far as letters, they also use pictographs. You can see pictographs still being used in Asian cultures, Eastern cultures. But these languages are literally thousands of years old. That's passed down to us. And if it wasn't for the people thousands of years ago who developed these words, concepts, principles, these ideas, based on their observations, probably hundreds of thousands of years, we would be no different than an animal, just making grunts and noises. Similar to how the barbarians in Northern Europe, they didn't really have a written language. They had grunts and noises like animals, and they kind of interpreted those grunts with physical expressions. It was sort of like a sign language with a grunt. So if you could look in a direction and grunt, a person will know whatever you're talking about has something to do with the direction that you're looking at. And if you're looking at like a rock or a stone, you might be telling a person to move it or something like that. But it wasn't like an articulate language in which you can know exactly what a person is saying without looking at their physical gestures. So this language and this mathematics and this history separates us from animals because this is how we develop and grow and learn. But a human being can also be an animal if they don't really know the history. If you don't know anything about history, or if you know a false history, because another thing about history is history can be manipulated and changed. So even though you're learning history, you're learning a false version of history, but that false version of history, because that's all you know, it will be the truth to you. Now, if your history is telling you that you grew out the ground as an animal, you were just a nothing, you don't contribute anything to the world, you'll be walking around like you an animal. I don't have anything to do with this. I didn't contribute no music. I didn't contribute anything to the culture. My people wasn't scientists and scholars. They didn't build anything based on what they're teaching you. And by you learning nothing about your own history, you will focus your daily routine on satisfying your basic instincts, which is food, clothes, shelter, and pleasure. Your desire to ascend into greater endeavors does not exist. It won't exist. You won't think about trying to be a doctor, a scientist, a scholar, unless somebody encouraged you. But usually it's when you learn the truth about who you are and what your contributions to the world is. The average so-called black person in America do not know anything about Egypt. They can't read the hieroglyphics. They don't know how to build a pyramid. They don't know how to cut granite out of a mountain. They don't know how to align structures, architectural structures to the stars. They don't know how to geoengineer or reverse engineer. They don't know how to do hydraulic engineering, terraforming. That's what our ancestors was doing. They don't know how to travel to space. They don't know how to time travel. They don't know how to build a machine out of raw materials. They don't know how to do anything really, because we don't know what our ancestors did, and we don't know our contributions to the things that we take for granted every day. Like, you wouldn't have any mathematics whatsoever without the Moors, because the Moors introduced the number system to Latin, and the Moors were black people who were also Muslims, but they was basically blacks. The religion is irrelevant because you could always change the religion, but they were really Carthaginians. And the Carthaginians, according to my studies, the Carthaginians originally came from America, and they traveled eastward to Europe, which is North Africa. Because if you look at, Spain is really connected to Morocco, and it's all like one land mass separated by the Mediterranean Sea. And it's really Asia, because you have Asia Minor, which is the so-called Middle East, and that's connected to Egypt, and that's separated by the Red Sea. And then the Mediterranean Sea separates Europe from Africa, but you still have a connection between Spain and Morocco. But the Carthaginians, allegedly, based on my studies, originally came from America and traveled there and set up city-states and colonies. That's what the Carthaginians did. They set up colonies all over the world, and they had the technology to build ships circumnavigating. They had the ability to circumnavigate the world, but they were the only people who could build ships, and they were the Phoenicians. The Carthage and Phoenician is like interchangeable. But King Solomon, he built a temple in the book of First Kings, because the book of Kings deals with the First Kings is Solomon. But he didn't build the temple. King Hiram from Tyre built the temple, because they had the massive cedar trees in Lebanon, which is ancient Tyre and Phoenicia. Northern Israel, what they call Israel, that was the Phoenicians' territory, and they have these massive trees, and you need these trees to build these ships, these sailboats, these massive ships. But the Carthaginians had the technology, But the reason I'm saying this is King Hiram in the Bible. King Hiram used the materials he got from Lebanon, which is with Tyre's in Lebanon, to build the temple of God. And King Solomon said, whoever, no matter what part of the world you're in, whatever you need, any type of inspiration, face this temple. Face this temple and pray to the temple. So King Solomon's temple was the first temple that people used to pray to regardless of, and right now people are praying towards the east to the Kaaba in Mecca, Arabia. So if you're in China, you'll be facing west. If you're in Europe, you'll be facing south. Regardless of what part of the world you're in, you'll be facing that temple, right? But this was an ancient technology that our ancestors brought to the world, being able to know longitude, latitude, your coordinates. But the coordinates was always based on the sky. You had to read the stars to know exactly what point you was on the planet, But this was our ancient ancestors that left this technology to the world. And because this technology was left to people now, we have GPS, which was also developed by a black woman. You can use the navigation system to go anywhere in the world. We have computers. Without numbers, you won't have computers. Without algebra. Algebra was also invented. Trigonometry, calculus, these are all liberal arts that our ancestors developed that people are benefiting from right now. And we don't really, a lot of our people, because we don't really know the history, we don't participate in those arts. And we're probably the only people capable of taking the arts to the next level, taking the sciences to the next level. Like the lady Kizzmekia Corbett from North Carolina, the lady who is getting credit for developing the coronavirus vaccine. Out of everybody on planet Earth studying medicine, in America usually it's the East Indian, the Asians, and the Caucasians studying medicine, right? But they couldn't do it. It had to be one of the original people whose ancestors developed the science in the first place. She was the one that took it to another level too. She had the ability to understand, possibly because of her genetic makeup, because we have the capability. Or if your ancestors did something, you can do it. It's in our genetics. But if you don't know the history, we will live our lives like an animal, humping, grunting, eating, battling, without knowing why. Because you don't know what happened last year. You don't even know about Martin Luther King. You don't even know about Nat Turner. You don't even know about King Louis. Why is Louisiana named after King Louis? And why were there 16 Louis? There has to be at least 1,600 years to have 16 Louis. And all of the kings weren't called Louis. It was other kings outside of Louis. But you don't know about none of these people. You don't know about the kings of America, the Algonquin people, the Mississippian people, the Iroquois people, the Iroquois nation who actually betrayed everybody, who helped America conquer, who helped the United States government conquer. The Algonquin people was the Iroquois. The Iroquois gave Thomas Jefferson the Constitution. You don't know about nothing. You don't even know who you really are, because we don't have a connection to history. Even though we have the mind, even though our ancestors left us documents carved in stone to give us a map back to who we are. If we was to ever lose who we are, we literally have stones that's impenetrable, indestructible. We have indestructible temples that the Caucasians don't even have the ability to destroy, because these rocks are so dense with our history in it. So the people, whoever our ancestors was, really had intentions on us knowing who we are and continuing their work. Why else would they go to a volcano? Like, you get black granite out of a volcano. Why else would they go into a volcano to carve stone just to put your history in it? They created the Rosetta Stone with Latin and Greek and Egyptian letters, because they knew we'll be speaking English. But English comes from the Egyptian language, So they had the Rosetta Stone set aside for us, because if I'm not mistaken, it was a black man that actually deciphered the Rosetta Stone. But I'm saying, they had intentions on you knowing exactly who you are. You particularly, their descendants. So you would claim your inheritance. They didn't build these temples and these cities and societies and countries for the enemy. They didn't leave it for the enemy. Now the enemy has it, but the enemy doesn't want the true heirs to participate or to enjoy what their ancestors left. The enemy has stolen your legacy. What they say, Chancellor Wilson wrote a book called Stolen Legacy. The enemy stole your legacy. And the enemy is not just the Caucasians. The enemy is also the Africans. The enemy is the Arabs, the Asians, whoever is working to keep you from getting your which owed to you, what belongs to you. Who's ever working to keep you from getting what's yours, and whoever's enjoying what's yours is the enemy, because they know exactly what they're doing. They know their ancestors was grunting. They didn't have a organized language. You know, they didn't have a system, a civilized system thousands of years ago. You know, but they want to enjoy the fruits of those civilizations, and excluding us. Hold on, what is that? Hold on. That's it. I'll come back.